Hey guys, in this video I'm going to review a fun game that I got to play today. So let's go ahead and take a look at it and see what happens. I'm playing with the white pieces, about 1200 elo. This was a blitz 3-minute game on chess.com. So I play the move e4. My opponent just prepares a Caro Con, and I go ahead and push my pawn in the center here because I wanted to try something this game where I push my center pawn instead of just defending a bit passively. So now I push my d-pawn to create this pawn chain in the center, and my opponent develops their bishop. I develop my knight. My opponent then plays the move e6, strengthening their center, and I go ahead and instead of developing my light-squared bishop, try to win a tempo on this queen. My opponent blocks with the bishop, and I go ahead and bring it back. They now play the move h6, so now I can't put my bishop on the square because it'll get taken. And now I go ahead and offer a trade of the light-squared bishops, which my opponent accepts. They develop their knight into the game, and I go ahead and get my king castled to safety. They then develop their rook, and I go ahead and play the move c4, striking at the center. They then make a little mistake here and push their c-pawn, and I go ahead and capture the d-pawn here, starting to open up the center. Anytime the king is still in the center here, you see they haven't castled their king. You want to try to play in the center and open up lines to their king because their king is not as safe as mine, so that's why I played that move. So my opponent then takes back as they should, and here I make a mistake. What I should have done is I should have developed my knight, and if they push this pawn to attack my queen, I could simply retreat it, or push my queen forward and get my queen to safety. As long as I stay on the light squares, I'm fine because there is no light squared bishop, and this pawn right here is now a weakness that my knight could take advantage of. But unfortunately, I didn't do that, and I took this pawn instead. But the reason this is a mistake is because they can simply capture back with the knight or the bishop, and my bishop is the only thing protecting this pawn. So that's why that's a mistake. So in the game, my opponent took back with the knight, and I went ahead and took with the bishop, and they went ahead and recaptured. Now I develop my knight, but here it's a little bit too slow. It's a little bit later than it should have been because my thoughts are I want to take this pawn off eventually and threaten checking the king with an attack on the queen, but it's not quite as good because my opponent can simply develop their knight, and now my plan of opening up the center is a little too slow because their king is preparing to castle, and if I take here this pawn, that just leads to losing a knight on the spot because it's now defended more, and I would be down a piece. So they develop there. I swing my rook into the game behind my knight, giving it some extra protection, and they finally get castled. So now I put my rook behind my e-pawn, getting ready to potentially push my pawn in the future, and they put their rook on their e-file as well. And so now here I go ahead and push the pawn because if they take back, that will really start opening up their king. And in the game, they did take back. But my rook can take that because that's a free that's a free pawn. And here, my opponent played the move knight to c6. Now, in the game, you can see it says that it's a blunder. But let's see, why is it a blunder? And so I spent a few seconds calculating here, thinking, can I take this rook? So this is how I was trying to think about in this game. If I take this rook, what is going to happen? So if I take a look at this bishop right here, this bishop is undefended, but this pawn right here is currently defended by the queen. If I were to take this pawn right here, they would simply take back, and then if I take the knight back, they could take my rook, and this would not be good for me because then I'd take the bishop, and I would be down a rook. So I can't take that pawn yet with the knight or the queen. And so the other option that I could do is, can I take this rook? And in the game, I found out that yes, I can take this rook, because if I take this rook, this king would only have one square to go to, which would lead to me picking up the queen. So they have to take back with the queen to keep the queen on the board. And then I realized this queen was the only defender of this pawn. So I can take the pawn with check right here, and let's say after any move here, let's say they block with the queen, offering a queen trade, I get to pick up this bishop. So in the game, I saw to myself that, yes, I can play this check here because it takes away the defense of the pawn. And since their king is on the same file, this is now a fork with the bishop. And after this, my opponent resigned the game because I was up a knight and up a pawn, and they didn't want to play that position anymore. So the reason this worked is because it came with check and it removed a defender of a critical pawn in the center. So hopefully you enjoyed this video. You can see on my time here, I realized that this knight move was a blunder. It took me about 6 seconds to calculate all this out. Make sure when you're attacking things, you're thinking, can they put my king in check? Because checks are forcing moves. They are always the strongest moves. So hopefully you enjoyed this video. Hopefully my commentary makes sense. If you liked the video, make sure to maybe check out some other videos. Make sure to leave a like on the video and make sure to subscribe for more. Have a good day.